Humans have always had an inclination to view the world through the lens of narrative. However, reality, that great curmudgeon, seldom sees fit to craft the events of real life into a proper narrative structure. So it is that, as writers, we find ourselves forever caught between relying on the trappings of reality to make our stories relatable, whilst also needing to employ singular creativity to infuse energy and brevity into our narratives. This technique is known by many names. To some it is artistic license. Others call it poetic license. But to writers like you and I, it is known as dramatic license. Greetings, good storytellers. I am the Artful Narrator, and it is my privilege to welcome you to Learning the Tropes of Writing. Now, since we are going to be talking about dramatic license, it is only proper that I show you mine, to attest to my credibility, as it were. Full disclosure, the musical sting costs extra, but it is so worth it.
Consider this your passport to the wonderful and quite unpredictable world of books.
In all seriousness, though, sometimes the only thing standing between you and a great story is some unreasonably stubborn aspect of reality. Fortuitously, this is where dramatic license comes into play. For as Mark Twain once said, in the real world, nothing happens at the right place, at the right time. It is the job of journalists and historians to correct that.
Indeed.
So it is that today, we are going to look at how to use dramatic license to warp reality and plausibility for the betterment of narrative, whilst hopefully not straining the willing suspension of disbelief. Because if dramatic license is not used tactfully, it can lead to cliches, which, in turn, can lead to having your dramatic license revoked.
Your dramatic license has just been revoked!
Now, the effects of dramatic license throughout the whole of narrative are so vast, and the subsequent tropes that it has created so numerous, that it is far easier to discuss it by looking at the distinct contrast between it and actual reality. For example, in the modern age, we understand that, in reality, space is not some vast cosmic sea, nor does it have the benefit of sound required to hear the pew-pew of lasers. And yet, space operas and many sci-fi stories present us with a vision of space that is as inaccurate and unscientific as it is imaginative. But as terrestrial beings, whose first glimpse into that mysterious cosmos came from the pages of early science fiction, it is not surprising that we still tend to find joy in seeing the dramatized version of space, depicted with imagery borrowed from airplane dogfights, submarines, sailing ships. Next up, we have fantasy, which fittingly has its fair share of dramatic license. For example, the genre's love for stirring sword fights. However, if you have ever watched fencing in the Olympics, you know that a match only lasts for a few seconds, because the competitors are not trying to put on a show by hitting their foils together. No, they're just trying to score a touch by landing a deft thrust. Just as how one can assume that in reality, duels to the death would have quickly ended with one fellow just stabbing the other. However, reality can sometimes be anticlimactic, and the use of dramatic license in this area does not necessarily stretch reality, but rather represents the most spectacular outcome that one could hope to witness, such as a duel between two masters that lasts for glorious minutes, punctuated only by the rhythmic clash of the combatants' swords.
Your sword, Gisborne.
And lastly, to prove the dramatic license is present in settings both fantastic and mundane, I would invite you to consider the world of trials, courtrooms, and lawyers. Now, in real life, law can be slow, ponderous, and confusing. For example, it can often take months for a case to go to trial. There are procedures dictating how the discovery of new evidence is treated, and trials rarely culminate with a dramatic confession on the witness stand. Basically, I think it is safe to say that trials are hardly a spectator sport or diversion on par with a Broadway show. And yet, while real-life courtrooms may lack brevity, this does not change the fact that compelling stories do play out there. So perhaps it is only fitting that in the hands of fictional lawyers like Perry Mason, Matlock, or Lieutenant Caffey, the courtroom is depicted as likened to a stage, whereupon the lawyers enact audacious dramas to enthrall both the jury and audience alike.
So this is what a courtroom looks like.
Now, having said all of this, it is important for you to understand that, above all else, dramatic license is a solution to a problem that is not a problem at all, but a stylistic choice. For there is not only nothing wrong with a story that realistically represents aspects of space in an otherwise imaginative space opera, but in truth, such stories are to be celebrated with the same enthusiasm that any well-written tale merits. And the same goes for a tale that realistically presents aspects of law or combat. You see, like so many things in writing, dramatic license is just a tool. Neither good nor bad, neither cheap nor grand. It is a thing better suited to some narratives than others, tales that require that such liberties with reality be taken in the name of telling an engaging story. But the thing you must watch out for is to know when you are using dramatic license, so that you do not use it unknowingly or allow it to become a get-out-of-research free card. Because sometimes the things that weaken the willing suspension of disbelief the most are not the big, fantastic events, but rather the little, everyday details that are present in both the narrative and in the readers' lives. Things that there is no reason to change, aside from the fact that you did not understand them in the first place, or ascribe importance to them. So save your dramatic license for the moments that count, and use it well, or abstain from it altogether, as your story dictates. For fast-paced and dynamic, or slow and profound, what makes a story a joy is the passion that the writer breathes into it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that this video has been informative, or at the very least, a pleasant diversion. Until next time.